So as I'm sure most of you know, I recently put out a video making a tier list on Dead by Daylight killers. Now whether or not you agree with that video doesn't really matter here, because today we're doing how fun killers are to play. The tiers we have today are most fun, usually a good time, could go either way, in the mood, and not fun. So this one I thought would maybe lighten the mood a little bit. Maybe instead of looking at how strong a killer is and getting into debates over it, we're just going to talk about how fun they are to play. And I do want to preface this video by saying this is all my opinion. So if you don't agree with it, let me know why in the comments, but don't be a dick. Okay, so getting into the Trapper. I think the Trapper could go either way. Because I think there's a lot of satisfaction off of setting up a trap and getting a survivor caught in it. Right? I think it's pretty fun when you can get a survivor stuck and your plan kind of works out and you watch it unfold. Say, for example, you're doing like a basement trapper, or you trapped up main building, or maybe you have some good spots, but alternatively, they can just constantly undo your traps. You can go away without getting any kills. So it's kind of hit or miss. If you're just playing to have fun, then I would say it could go either way. Because like a guy like me, like I'll constantly do basement trapper builds or silly builds. Maybe a backpack build, and I'll have a lot of fun, but there are a lot of times where they're just disarming traps, or maybe they're staying away from the area that you trapped up. So personally, I think it could go either way. So Wraith, I'm probably going to put in usually a good time. I think if you're playing Wraith, you like to play as a stealth killer. You're probably banking more on scaring the survivors rather than having a sweaty game, and I think Wraith's pretty good for that, especially with the myriad of builds that you could do, whether it's the silent bell or the fast breaking build. He has a lot of different playstyles that can make him a very fun killer to play and can make two games very different from one another. I think because of his add-ons, no two games play exactly the same when you run different add-ons. So he's usually a good time. Once again, you're playing him to be stealthy and have fun, and he's pretty good at that. I think Billy is also usually a good time. I'd probably put him above Wraith, maybe. But Billy's one of those characters that the satisfaction comes more with mastering him. So you have more fun with Billy the better you get, but also that grind of getting better is equally as fun, if not more fun. You know what I mean? Because there is definitely a huge skill ceiling to his saw, whether it's curves or learning the overcharge mechanic. I think mastering Billy is probably the most fun thing about it, but he's usually a good time. Nurse, I feel like you have to be in the mood for, at least me personally. I think it is very satisfying to hit shots on Nurse. I think Nurse is one of those characters like Billy, where the grind is more satisfying than anything. Maybe you're playing on a two-story map and you got better and now you can go back and forth, or maybe you're playing on Larry's and you know how to phase through the maps by now. It's not confusing anymore, but it's definitely a grind in the beginning. And the thing about nurse games is they tend to be very sweaty. You'll either run into a baby nurse who has no clue what she's doing, or you'll run into a nurse who has you all down at 5 gens. And I think although that grind is fun, it's not the same as a Billy game where people are going to mess around more, looping is more fun. Personally, I would just put nurse a little bit lower on her just because I feel like she is more of a kind of like meta killer. I think a lot of people who play her to be sweaty, and not too many people are kind of having a silly time on nurse. Myers, I'd probably put at the bottom of most fun. I think when it comes to Tombstone or Infinite Tier 3, Mooring Survival, like he has a lot of different ways you can play too. He has some of the strongest add-ons in the game. But I think the biggest thing about Myers is the ability to scare people. I think that's the biggest draw with Myers, is Myers players know that they're scaring survivors when they lock him in. And that's because, I mean, he's one scary looking motherfucker. You know what I mean? I think people who play Michael Myers know that they're going to scare the shit out of someone. Whether they're doing scratch mirror or you're just a tier 3 Myers running around the map with your knife in hand ready to insta-down someone. I think regardless, everyone knows that Michael's usually a good time, whether you win or lose, just because of who he is and how he plays. Hag is another one that I think could go either way. I think Hag requires a lot of setup with traps, and I think once you get more knowledge on traps and how to use them, she becomes a lot more fun. But at the same time, survivors can also kind of counteract your traps or avoid them, or maybe they'll just bully you. Maybe you're just stuck in a chase with someone where you can't really use your traps and you overcommit to that chase, and now you're kind of getting bullied for being an M1 killer. On the flip side, you have traps that scare the shit out of people. Like if you've ever thrown a Hag trap and a survivor runs into it and you just see him stop moving, you know they just dropped their fucking controller. You know what I mean? You know you just scared the shit out of them. So I think Hag's one of those killers where it could go either way. You can either have a lot of fun, or you're like, fuck, why did I lock in Hag? You know what I mean? Doctor, I would say usually a good time. I think Doctor, I would put him maybe above Wraith. He's one of those who can also run silly builds like the impossible skill check build. A lot of doctors I've ran into are sweaty though, but I think those fun doctor games are really fun for both sides. Like for example, impossible skill checks is, I think, one of Survivor's favorite builds because it kind of forces them to be on their toes and be on edge. And I think for a lot of newer players, Doctor doesn't seem as fun because he's annoying to play against. But I think once both sides have a good grasp on what he's capable of, he becomes a lot more fun. Pair that with his anti-loop and his constant map pressure, I think he's usually fun to play. As well as his sound, like the noises he makes, the sadistic laughing and things like that. He's pretty fun to play. I think Huntress so far is top of most fun. I think similar to Billy and Nurse, there's a grind to getting good with her, so that's really fun. But you have so many things to factor. There's like silent hatchets, there's fast hatchets, there's orbitals, some loops you can learn, some tiles you can learn how to use your hatchets on. So Huntress has a huge skill ceiling and a pretty unique power in that she has a projectile, which not a lot of killers have. So that would instantly kind of elevate her on how fun she is. But so far, I think we're gonna have to put her at the top of the list. Bubba, I think, is also usually a good time, maybe top of usually a good time. I'm actually kind of debating whether or not to put him in most fun, only because once again, who the character is. Chances are if you're playing Bubba, you're a huge fan of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, but I think the noises he makes, the way his power works, it's pretty fun, because in certain instances, he feels very strong. I mean, you have the ability to insta-down multiple survivors at once, like Plague's Vomit, you know? It's one of those things where it's really fun to use, but at the same time, there are a lot of times where you can get bullied. You can get stuck in the tantrum, or maybe survivors are like working together to stun you or make you miss your saw. It can get a little tilting, but I think overall people have fun playing Leatherface just because of who he is and what his power does. He's just a pretty fun killer in general. Freddy, this might be a little controversial, but I'm going to say that Freddy's not fun. The only reason why I say that is because a lot of what he has going for him is because of who the character is. I think his power is pretty boring, his gameplay is pretty boring for both sides, and he's not usually the most fun to play as. I think a lot of times when people like playing him, it's because they enjoy Freddy Krueger or the way he acts in game, like his mannerisms and such. But he's kind of like bland, especially when you start to compare him to the Robert Englund iteration of Freddy. He's kind of a very, very, very boring take on the character. And that's not to say that there aren't people out there who like the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm sure some of you do, but this Freddy just doesn't cut it for me. Personally, I don't find him fun. Even when I am in the mood to play him, I'll lock him in on a game and I'm like, damn, that kind of sucked. So I don't see myself touching him very often. The Pig, I think, is usually a good time. I'd probably put her above Doctor. I think with the Pig, you have a little bit of everything. You have a little bit of anti-loop, you have a little bit of stealth, you have a little bit of built-in slowdown. Putting the traps on people is definitely very satisfying. The Boop the Snoop shit can be really fun. I think there's a lot of fun shit you can do with Pig and a lot of different ways to play her, whether you want to be kind of like a running gun into stealth, or you want to be just like pure stealth and like crouching all around the map, or you just want to be trapping everyone. Maybe your build focuses more on your stealth, maybe focus more on the trap, maybe on the dash. There's just a lot she can do, and I honestly really like the noises from her little drill weapon. I think her little drill weapon is probably like top 3 weapons in the game for me. Definitely one of the most fun to play with. I think Freddy's glove is up there too. I really like Freddy's glove. He's just so boring of a character to me. Clown, I'd have to say in the mood. Clown's one of those where he's fun and he's cool, but I think other people are just more fun to play as. I mean, that's not to say that you can't have fun on Clown. I think fucking with his bottles is kind of chill, and I think a lot of the add-ons that are kind of geared towards his bottles are fun to mess around with too, like the one that swaps the colors. That one's pretty confusing for survivors, and you don't see many clowns running it. There's also a skill ceiling as far as throwing his bottles and knowing when to use them, when to reload, when to use haste. So he does have a lot of fun in that aspect. But when I get on DVD, there are usually other killers I want to play above him, which is the only reason why I'm putting him in the mood, because I have to be in the mood to play Clown. You know what I mean? I can't just boot up a game of Clown and I'm like, oh my god, this is so fun. Spirit, I think, is could go either way as well. I think Spirit is one of those killers where a lot of people who play her are very sweaty. She's another one of those meta killers, so a lot of people who like to, you know, dial up their headphones and lock in. Maybe they're dead quiet and they're just, you know, trying to slug everybody, and they're trying to, like, I don't know. I think she's pretty fun. She has a very unique power in that she kind of gets taken out, similar to Wraith, but I would say even dialed up a little bit to where she goes into her own realm. So her lore is cool. I mean, she looks cool. Her aesthetics, I really enjoy the aesthetic. I really enjoy the sounds, the visuals. I think she's a very well-designed killer. And I think her gameplay is also pretty unique. So she's pretty fun in my book. But half of the time I play Spirit, I notice myself like kind of sweating because I feel like I'm playing a meta killer, and if I lose on a meta killer, then I suck. So I gotta sweat, and it could go either way. That's the best way to put it for me. Legion, I'd probably say in the mood. And the only reason why I say that is because I know he's kind of annoying to play against. I know I'm kind of ruining someone's day if I play Legion, especially depending on how I play him. Like, let's say I'm tunneling and slugging. Oh my god, I know I'm tilting somebody. But I think a lot of the appeal, at least for me when it comes to Legion, is that he's a slasher. And I don't think there are too many like typical slashers in this game. Like when you look at someone like Oni, he's a giant warrior, right? You look at someone like Pyramid Head, he's the manifestation of guilt. You look at someone like Demogorgon, he's a giant fucking monster. But not too many people are just normal people in a mask with a knife, which I personally find to be some of the most interesting characters, right? It's just a crazy lunatic guy running around with a mask and a knife. So I think personally I'd have to be in the mood for Legion. A lot of their cosmetics are pretty sick, like the bunnies or Hunk or There's just so many combinations that you can do from what they have that make them really cool. But I think after you spam Q Legion, they start to get a little bit boring. You know, the cycle of just running back and forth and then running back and forth and then, oh, what's that? A little bit more of running back and forth. It gets a little tiring, right? At least for me. Plague could go either way. I think Plague has a really fun power and I really like her slowdown, but it's similar to Legion where I kind of feel like a lot of people don't have fun playing against her. Depending on whether or not you even get your red vomit, that's its own kind of mini game for me. Is that like trying to snipe people? I like trying to use it at loops. Like, you just feel strong as fuck when you have it. Puking on everything is really fun. But at the same time, a lot of those games tend to go on for, at least for me, I can't tell you why, but a lot of my play games tend to go on for a very long time. And they tend to go down to the fucking wire, you know, like hatch 1v1s and stuff. And they get like super sweaty and I'm just like, fuck dude, I'm gonna play either a killer that I find more enjoyable or a stronger killer because that was a mess. And yeah, you could just say maybe I'm dog shit, but I mean, there are times where I find her really fun as well. Like I said, with her red puke, I think she's a really solid killer all around, a lot of built-in slowdown. But when it comes to slowdown, I think those are some of the least fun games. A lot of killers that I think are most fun are kind of the ones that pop off, like say like a tier 3 Myers, then you can like snowball and down everyone. I think that's personally a lot more fun, and there's a lot more risk in that playstyle than someone who just perma slows. That's just my opinion. Ghostface, I'd probably put above Myers as most fun, and he's similar to Myers where you can scare people with him, but Ghostface, you're primarily trying to scare people with him, right? I think when you play Ghostface, there's so many like silly things to him, whether it's his Mori or his animations or his cosmetics. You have the you know, the what's up mask, you have the kitty mask, so you have like silly things going on for him, but at the same time, he's such a stealthy and iconic character that I think a lot of people not only enjoy playing as him, but they also love to play against him. I don't think the same could be said for Huntress. I think a lot of people would much rather play against a Ghostface than a Huntress. You can get a lot of jump scares, you know, you can set things up in a pretty unique way because of how often you become undetectable as Ghostface, to where it's very, very fun to jump out and get someone. Personally, he's my most fun killer to play as most of the time, just because I love scaring the shit out of people. I will throw a game for a jump scare. You know what I mean? There have been so many instances where it's like crunch time and I got to get it down, but I'll sit in the corner because I know someone's about to walk over and I'll scare the shit out of him and get a good clip out of it. And at the end of the day, when I play Ghostface, that's what's more important to me because he's a true stealth killer. Demogorgon, honestly, top of usually a good time. I think Demogorgon is very, very fun. He has a lot of fun powers like the teleports and the dash. His music is pretty badass. His visuals are pretty badass. I think a lot of people love playing against Demogorgon as well. I think it's a pretty mutual thing, to where when someone locks in Demogorgon, you're gonna have a good time, or at the very least, you're probably not gonna have a bad game, right? I don't think most people think that playing as or against Demogorgon is gonna be a bad game. There's also some skill to his dash. There's a little bit more than meets the eye when it comes to it. Like the longer you hold it, the further you go, things like that. And he can break pallets. I think a lot of killers who have powers that break pallets, like Billy and Bubba, are very, very fun, at least in my opinion. If they can break a pallet, it instantly like bumps them up a notch in my book. Oni, I'd put at the bottom of most fun. I think Oni is like, his design is very sick to me, right? He's this giant warrior motherfucker around the map just slaughtering these people. But also his power is so fucking addicting. Just running around the map, knowing that you have an insta-down tool that can also break breakable walls and pallets, just feels so fucking sick. He's like a better Hillbilly, at least for me, because I like his visuals more. I like his power. I just like the way he plays. I like how he has this kind of map-wide presence to where when you're in your power, similar to Billy, like people fear you. They're scared of the Oni turning a corner and just smacking him in the face and downing him. I really like his skins as well, like the Minotaur or the Armored Titan. I think his skins are pretty sick. His weapons are sick, the giant fucking katanas and what is it, the Kanobo. So pretty high tier killer for me as far as fun goes. Deathslinger is also another one that I'd probably put right below Ghostface as most fun. Being someone who plays a lot of FPS games like Overwatch, Siege, COD, I love Slinger. I think he kind of fits that niche of someone who's coming in from an FPS game, because DBD isn't like a lot of typical games that are on the market. I think an asymmetrical horror game being so as popular as it is kind of not commonplace. I think a lot more people are used to Fortnite or Call of Duty or Siege. So having a killer with the basic gun seems like a good idea already, but then once you start to play him and you realize his mechanics, I think he's a lot more fun than you might initially believe, because I've seen Deathslingers who fucking shoot through the walls at Shack, right? There'll be boarded up windows at Shack and they'll snipe someone through the wall and they'll bring them to him and they'll hit him. Like, there are so many times recently where I've been playing against a Deathslinger and I get shot from some crazy angle that I'm like, what the fuck? That I try and replicate in my own Deathslinger games, which also makes them super fun, right? Like, I'm constantly discovering new shots that I didn't know I could hit. And I think similar to a lot of the other killers, he also has his own skill ceiling as far as mastering the range of the gun, when you should or shouldn't shoot. I feel like he's probably the most unique killer. I don't know. That might be a super hot take, but he's one of the most unique killers in the game. Pyramid Head, I'd also put most fun. I think just because of who Pyramid Head is, the visuals, the aesthetic, there's so much to his power, whether you want to cage someone, the in-game Mori, the giant fucking sword. His M2 is also very fun, so his snipe ability where he kind of shoots up something from the ground. There's so much skill that goes into that as well, to where he's super, super fun. I don't know, I really like playing as a stealthy Pyramid Head. I feel like he's so quiet as a killer. Like, compare him to someone like Nemesis who has some loud ass footsteps. I think Pyramid Head is such a quiet killer that he's very, very effective with stealth perks. Obviously, you can put stealth builds on any characters, but I just really, for some reason, love doing it on Pyramid Head, and I find him super, super fun to play. Even if I lose a game on him, I usually have a good time. Blight, I think, could go either way. I think Blight is one of those where, similar to Spirit, I kind of feel the need to be sweaty. I kind of feel like it's do or die when I'm playing him, because I don't know. I think there are more fun killers out there. I like his power, and I like the idea of going fast, and he's speedy, and he can break pallets and breakable walls in his power, which is always a plus. But again, it's just one of those things where I feel like I'm playing a meta killer, so I have to do a good job. I have to 4K. And that's more my mindset. I'm not saying that you guys are going to agree with this, but I just think there are more fun killers than him, which is the case for most of the people down here. It's not to say that they aren't fun or they're not satisfying. I just genuinely think that I'd have more fun playing, say, Deathslinger or Ghostface. So twins, I'm going to say usually a good time. I'd probably put them under Billy and above Pig. The thing about twins is they're kind of like sweaty, right? Like, they kind of, I feel like I'm incentivized to slug and tunnel when I play twins, just because of how their power works and how, if everyone's injured, you can just go and down everybody with Victor within like one charge. But I think the pounce mechanic is really fun. I really like their Mori, how they kind of work together. There's like two Moris, one with or without Victor. I like that survivors can kick the baby. I think that's always pretty funny. I just find it kind of goofy. I find their gameplay loop super, super goofy. I kind of love playing around as Victor, running around as a little fucking creature, just waddling fast as fuck. I think they're fun. I don't have too much to say about them other than I usually have a good time on them. Trickster, I think, is could go either way. Probably the middle of could go either way. He's the definition of a snowball killer. If they don't know how to counter him, or if they're not breaking line of sight constantly, then you can win a game super quick. And it feels really nice to hit all of those knives and to maybe get a good main event off and you're fucking shit up. But at the same time, you have a lot of people who know to break line of sight. You have a lot of people who can work around your power. It's just not as fun. They did buff his speed. They did make him faster to compensate for that. But there are still so many games on Trickster where I'm just like, shit, like, I'm doing so bad right now. That's not to say that I don't have those games where I'm down everyone at 5 gens, but I have a lot of games on Trickster that I'm just like, fuck, dude, I'm losing. Like, I can't manage to land a knife. Like, what am I doing wrong? But overall, I think his aesthetic's very unique. He doesn't seem like the traditional killer. He has a lot going on for him in that department. I think his visuals carry him a lot as well. And just the fact that you're a K-pop star, you're a famous musician who is super fucked up and sadistic, and it's reflected in his gameplay as far as his dialogue, his laughs. I think he could go either way, but I usually find him to be pretty fun. Nemesis, I think, is usually a good time. I'd probably put him maybe above twins. I think Nemesis is funny as fuck. There are so many memes about him, about the tunneling Nemesis. Like, he has his big ass footsteps. His tentacles really fun to hit. Sometimes your zombies can make a game as well. Like, I've had moments where my zombies make me laugh my ass off because they're either doing something really stupid, or they managed to down 3 people, or something insane happened. Or I made them really fast with my add-ons. The zombies can make that so much fucking fun. Also, people who don't know how to counter Nemesis getting whipped, people who do know how to counter him are also fun to loop against, because, you know, it makes for more of a challenge. Like, if I'm trying to smack someone over a window and they crouch and it makes me miss, I'm like, oh, you motherfucker. I just want him that much more. Like, I think Nemesis is pretty fun to play as. Whether I win or lose on him, I find him pretty fun. I also really like his sound design, like whoosh, whoosh, like his big fucking fists. I mean, what other killer in here just starts Superman punching bitches? You know what I mean? Put coup de grace on that motherfucker and he goes flying. Pinhead, I think his top of could go either way for me. I think Pinhead is someone who is super, super satisfying to hit the chains. Love his visuals, love the noises, love the unique pallet break animation and the wall break animation and the picking people up, the kind of telekinesis that he has. I think his Mori is probably like top 3 in the game for me, just sending someone off to hell. But I think the box gameplay is a little tedious, right? Having to constantly teleport back and forth, trying to find out who has the box. It adds slowdown for both sides, honestly. because now you're focused on trying to find one survivor instead of maybe attacking the ones that are blatantly in front of you, which at the end of the day, yeah, is your choice. But I don't know, I just feel like his gameplay loop can be a little I feel like when you start to miss a ton of hooks and survivor, you start to face very good like P100 survivors that know how to counter Pinhead. He's a little you know, he's a little tilting when you start missing your hooks, but at the same time, he's also super fun when you start hitting your hooks and you're just snowballing a game. You're able to maybe get the box early. I mean, could go either way. Artist, I think, is also maybe the new top of could go either way, because her power is really strong, and I definitely think she's one of the most underrated killers in the game. I think her skill ceiling is just so fucking high, but that could all be countered by a 2-story map. You know what I mean? Like, you could have the best artist in the world, but you put them on like Gideon's and they're already getting a nerf. Not to say that they won't still get a 4K at 5 gens or something, but I'm just saying, like, it's like, fuck, like I hate getting a 2-story map when I'm playing artist. I really like her sound design, her noises. I like running the Jabberwock skin from Alice in Wonderland. I think that even elevates the experience because of how sick it looks when you do the Mori or when you break things. The fucking dragon cosmetic. I think she's a really cool killer, and I think she has a really cool power, but she gets countered by stories. I mean, you put that bitch on the swamp, you know, put her on the map with the giant boat, and you have so many different elevations. You have the top of the boat, you have the docks that are kind of like risen up, you have the small boat on the map, and then you got the ground, and then you got all the hills and mounds. It makes it super hard to play her on that map. Sadako, I'd probably say, is usually a good time. I like her ability to teleport. I think any killer who has super fast forms of mobility are instantly a lot more fun to play, such as Billy or Oni. Those killers tend to be very fun. Her sound design is really cool. She also scares the fuck out of you. Just in the loading screen, she'll scare the shit out of you, which I think is really fun too, because she's one of those killers where DBD does feel like a horror game when you're playing as her or against her. Power is really unique too, and the fact that you can just Mori people right away. They don't have to be any hooks for you to Mori them, so long as you condemn them. So if you get really good with her, and maybe you get a small map like Midwich, you can just kill everybody. No hooks. You can just Mori everybody, so long as you manage to finesse the condemned. So she's pretty sick. Also, her P6 cosmetics look really sick. Even her default cosmetic looks really sick. She's just a very visually unique killer, in my opinion. Like, she stands out. Maybe not to compared to the Spirit, but for everyone else, like, even just looking at this list, she stands out a lot to me. She looks really cool. The Dredge also, I think, could go either way. I will admit he's not my favorite killer to play as, and I don't play much of him anymore. I do like his ability to teleport, and I do like when you grab someone out of a locker, that shit's fun as fuck. I like using his remnant to mind game loops. The mind games are really fun too. But, you know, it's like doing a 50-50 at a loop is also like a 50-50 chance of me having a good fucking time while playing that game. Like, if I'm constantly doing 50-50s at loops with my remnant and it's not working and they're just getting away and they're holding W and I'm getting pallet stunned or I'm fucking up, then I kind of get a little tilted. If I'm teleporting to like a bunch of different lockers and they're all locked and it just takes so much time, it could be super annoying. But on those off chances that you do teleport and you grab someone out the locker, or you do get a successful hit after using a remnant, it's probably one of the better feelings as playing killer. It's just an instant hit of dopamine because of your skill and how well you played him. Wesker, I'd probably put up here on most fun, maybe even above Slinger. I think Wesker is really fun because of his mobility, also doubling his anti-loop. His infection kind of makes built-in slowdown that doesn't feel super annoying. His infection, for both sides, in my opinion, feels a lot more fun than, say, Legion constantly injuring somebody, or Plague constantly getting people puking and shit. I like Wesker's infection a lot more because it's very easy to cleanse, it's very easy to apply, it just works in the background of his power. He's just, I don't know, he's cool. I don't care too much for his visuals. I don't like his voice. I think he's a little annoying. That might just be from how many people fucking play him. But I do really like his power. I like the big ass fucking Bowie knife he has around, the tentacles, his Mori's funny as fuck. And a lot of my enjoyment as playing that character comes from his power. A lot of the fun that I have from him comes from grabbing someone and fucking tossing them, being fast as fuck, having good mobility, good general slowdown. He's just very solid killer, very fun to play. Knight, I'd probably put in usually a good time. I think a lot of my enjoyment from Knight comes from his aesthetics. I think he's a really cool looking killer. One of the most cool looking killers, if not the most cool looking killer in my opinion. I just love his armor. I love the guards. I love the whole vibe that he has going on. And I think now that he's been reworked, I'm putting him up here. Current Knight, I'd probably could go either way. But I think with the rework Knight, where you have more control over who you're summoning that's live on the PTB, I'm gonna have to smack him in usually a good time, because all the games that I've played with him are generally pretty fun. Even if I lose, which I haven't really lost much with the new Knight, he still feels super satisfying to play, knowing that you have full control over your guards now, and just his noises, dude, the clanking of the armor and the giant sword, the pallet break animation feels so sick, especially when you're running his Halloween cosmetics. Skull Merchant, I don't think she's fun. This is just my take. I don't think Skull Merchant is fun to play as or against. I know a lot of people will just insta DC against her. There have been so many times where I try and play her and people will just instantly 4-man DC and I'm just playing against a bunch of bots with wall hacks. Kind of sucks. I also don't fully understand her power yet, so yeah, you can say that's my fault, but I just don't find her a lot of fun to play. That's not to say that she doesn't have redeeming qualities. I mean, I really like her weapon and I think visually she's a little uninspired, but some of her cosmetics look cool, like the cat one. Or the recent Chinese New Year one, I think that's what it was. That one was really sick too, with like the gas mask. That cosmetic looks really sick. But she's just kind of boring to me. I don't see her as a super fun killer. I don't see her as a lot of fun for either side. She's really complicated. She has a lot of shit that just bloats her kit and makes her kind of unbearable. Again, really cool weapon though. One of the sickest weapons in the game. Giant fucking predator claw. But I just don't like her. Personally, I do not like her. Singularity. I think Singularity for most people would probably be usually a good time. For me, I think it could go either way. For me, the Singularity is one of those killers where he has this super satisfying moments where you're having a really good cam setup. You know, you have your cam set up all around the map and you're constantly patrolling and you have a lot of coverage. You're TPing to survivors, you're getting your goop off a lot, and you're just shitting on a 4-man. But there's also a lot of times where people are just using the EMPs at the right time, shutting down your cameras. They're kind of cucking you. Now you can't use your power to TP to someone. They're shutting down something you had. Maybe you were about to TP directly to them, but they use the EMP last second, so now your goo just misses. I'm stupid. I know a lot of you will be like, oh, we'll just put up a camera and chase and then goop them, and then you can goop to them directly. Yeah, you're right, but for me, this is my opinion. This is my list. I'm just going to say he could go either way, because when I play him, he could go either way. Alien, I think, is usually a good time. I'd probably put him under Knight, maybe above Nemesis. I think Alien, his teleport's really fun. It's really unique, crawling under the map. I haven't really seen that in any other killers. You kind of have your own little world down there that's super fun to traverse. I like how he kind of has like two stances. I don't know if you could call it that, like Oni. He kind of has these two forms. It's not as drastic as Oni, but he kind of has his normal form where he's not that stealthy and he has still the ability to teleport, but he's basically M1 killer. And then he has his stealth form where he goes on all fours, gets super low to the ground. He's able to smack survivors with his tail. He now has another option that's very similar to Nemesis's tentacle. I think his visuals are really sick. His Mori's sick. Seeing him in the lobby is sick. The Blighted Xenomorph looks awesome. The Queen looks awesome. I think the height difference between the Queen and the normal Xenomorph is also really interesting. How now you have the same killer who has different heights based on cosmetics. That's not something I've seen a whole lot with killers. I just really like their visuals. I think I like the visuals of the Alien more than the gameplay. I think I like playing against them more than playing as them, but they're still usually a good time to play as. Chucky, honestly, is going to the top of most fun for me. Chucky is my most fun killer to play. I think with how much he has going for him as far as his mobility, his anti-loop, you know, the dash is so silly. The stealth, he has amazing stealth. Not only is he like 2 feet fucking tall, but he can just go undetectable with his power. But I think most of Chucky for me comes from the cosmetics and the voice lines, just who the character is. I mean, I really like Chucky. I've always been a fan of the Chucky movies, and having so many voice lines throughout the game, as well as being able to play as Tiffany or the kind of stitched up, fucked up Chucky from Child's Play 3 and on. He's just my most fun killer. He's someone that I can queue if I'm having a good day, a bad day, it won't matter. And after that game, I'll probably be happier than I was before queuing. Like if I have a bad game on say like Legion or Clown or some shit, I'm playing Chucky. Chucky's just one of those people that is always going to make me feel better to play because of how much he has going on for him and how unique he is. I can go on and on about Chucky, but he's pretty fucking fun. He's a pretty sick killer. The Unknown is probably my new top of could go either way. I think that the Unknown is one of those killers that has a super, super high skill ceiling, but for some reason, a lot of times things just don't work out. Sometimes you got a lot of lucky shots and it's fun, but sometimes you might have an unlucky shot where your M2 just bounces off a wall or something. Your globs just don't work how you want them to. Even if you feel like you've perfected him, sometimes it just will do something completely unexpected for me. I tend to overestimate the range on his power as well. Like I'll think it goes further than it does, and it like does not. It's like throwing a fucking boulder. You know what I mean? But I think the visuals are very, very unique. I kind of like his analog horror aesthetic. We don't really have a lot of that in DBD. I mean, maybe you could make that argument for say like the Onryo, but there aren't a lot of killers like him. I think when his reveal trailer first dropped, I thought he was a ton of fun. Him coming out with Sable kind of elevates him in my book too. The fire axe as a weapon, super unique. Never had a killer with a fire axe, at least not to the extent of my knowledge. I just think he's really cool looking, And I think he has a lot of scare potential. Like I love playing him with Insidious and standing still and looking like a clone that you need to dispel and then jump scaring someone. That's one of my favorite things to do in this entire game, is to jump scare with the unknown. And I know a lot of people get scared off him just because of how he looks, but could go either way because I'm pretty shit with his power and I get bullied a lot by Swifts. Now Vecna is the last one on this list. I'm honestly going to put him right below Chucky. I think he belongs right below Chucky because of how much he has going for him, but I don't think he's at that same level of Chucky. I think Chucky being so much more well known and Chucky meaning more to me personally, I still got to put him at top. But Vecna, oh my god, dude, if it wasn't for me growing up on the Chucky movies, Vecna would probably be number one. He has so many powers at his disposal and so much versatility in his gameplay. Like, you can win games and you can go on win streaks without using some of his powers. His cosmetics, he only has one cosmetic, but it's really sick. He's really cool looking. He fucking levitates. This guy who has so much power. His Mori's sick, where he drags these skeletons down to get you. He's just super unique, super versatile, has so much going on for him. He's just super, super, super strong. He's very visually appealing. Gameplay wise, I have a lot of fun with him. The anti-loop, the mobility, just super, super solid killer in my opinion. And I think that's going to make my list. So that's it. Those are the killers that I enjoy playing the most versus the killer that I enjoy playing the least. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Remember that this is all opinionated. This is heavily, heavily, heavily opinionated just because this is how much fun I have playing on them. And I hope you guys enjoyed.